Hey there, Blue Mages, Liam here, and welcome back to Blue Academy. It's been a really exciting week here post 5.45, and we got a lot of changes, and a lot of people are asking, what are the best spells to take? And it turns out that's not really an easy question to answer, and we're still trying to figure out answers for that. But I'm going to try my best here to provide a list of core spells for each role that should get you going for pretty much any of the new content. So, let's get started. These are the kind of non-negotiable spells, in my opinion, for our Blue Mage. The exception here, let me just swap that around. So we have a bunch of spicy new spells here. Nightbloom is a huge spell that we get from Tsukiyomi. It is 400 damage, or 400 potency, followed by 1500 potency dot. This is huge. This is like our new biggest nuke spell. Not really nuke because it's over 1 minute, but you know what I mean. Next is Phantom Flurry. This is a 200 potency dot, followed by a 600 potency finisher. Cold Fog, you take some damage, and then you can start using a 400 potency instant cast for 15 seconds. This is sort of like Dreadworm Trance on Summoner, and this is just really powerful. It gives you a lot of mobility and a lot of damage. And then we have some, familiar faces. We've got Shock Strike, we've got Feather Rain or Eruption if you prefer. We've got Supernica, Final Sting, J-Kick, Off Guard or Peculiar Light, Moon Flute, Bristle with Song of Torment, Sonic Boom, Rose of Destruction is a new one, which is nice. It's a 400 potency GCD spell, Glass Dance, and also Matra Magic. And this is only for DPS. This is a 800 potency GCD. Worth noting that this Rose of Destruction and this Matra Magic can both be boosted by Bristle. Now things get a little bit complicated here because we're still trying to figure out what spells are worth taking and what spells are worth dropping. You might notice that I don't have a spell for each Libra, and you might be thinking, Liam, what the hell? Did you lie to us before? And no, I did not. Before, it was the case that Libra is always going to be worth taking. But now we've got so many tools that, we start thinking about, is the potency gain from Libra really worth it? And there is no definite answer on this yet. But I will say DPS has a much easier time fitting in spells. So as a DPS, you could very easily pick up something like Blaze, which is a nice new Umbral spell that acts like Electrogenesis, and whatever physical spell you want, Abyssal Transfixion or Sharpened Knife. So these are sort of the core spells here, and we do have 6 spots on the side here. And we can fill this with anything that we have room for. So if you're a DPS, those could be Libra spells. If you want to, you can grab Tingle and Triple Trident. This is a nice combo. On top of this, we might want to grab Whistle, and this would help with our Sting. You might be wondering, why the hell did we take Sting if we didn't take Whistle? Well, we can also Bristle that if we needed. It's a little bit less, but if we're strapped for spell spots, which can be the case for some of the fights, then we would probably want to drop this. Now, let's see what else we would want to take. This sort of depends fight to fight. For some fights, you might need Devour for some survivability. For some fights, you might need this Gate spell here, Jelenian Gate, for some survivability. You really need to figure out what you need for each fight. So in the future, when I have a video for fights, you'll see me showing the spell loadouts for each role. But for now, this is the sort of thing that we're going to be taking. And you can fill these spots with pretty much whatever you want. If you're running dungeons, for example, you'll definitely want to be taking Ram's Voice and Ultra Vibration. This is basically our new death combo, works on more mobs, and it's just super powerful. This is better than level 5 death ever was, as long as things are vulnerable to deep freeze, which it turns out a lot of enemies are. So that's our DPS. Basically, these core spells, plus Matra Magic, and then we can fit in Tingle, Triple Trident, Whistle, and whatever else we want. If you're soloing, you can still do things like Choco Meteor in the outside world. If you're soloing synced dungeons, you can take Basic Instinct, but as usual, I'm mostly talking about raids here. Like I said, those will change dramatically from fight to fight, so don't worry too much about these last spots, just fill them with whatever you want, which can be Libra spells, and stay tuned for these fight-specific ones. Okay, now let's talk about healers. Healers got some really cool tools with 5.45. So first, let's just throw on our old reliable Palm Cure and Gobskin. These are still what we're going to be taking pretty much always. This is our single target heal. This is our shield. We used to take Exuviation sometimes. The issue with this was the 6 yalm radius is very small. What we now have is Stotrum, from Lakshmi. This is a 400, or sorry, it's a 300 potency, 15 yom range heal. This is really, really good. It's a nice way to heal up the raid that isn't the 1500 MP White Wind. And this is just super powerful. It probably is still worth taking White Wind for certain fights when you really need that, you know, massive healing power, but Still Trim is really nice. We're going to drop Matra Magic because if you're a non-DPS, it's only a 400 potency spell, which isn't really any better than Rose of Destruction. So we're not going to worry about that too much. Instead, we grab Angel Snack, which shares a cooldown with it. This one is the 400 potency AoE heal that also applies a 200 potency regen. Blue Mage finally has a regen, and this is really nice. So these are our healing spells. It's pretty much, you know, we're taking our core plus our healing tools. White Wind is optional, depending on the fight. And then we have 2 utility slots. And this is where things start to get spicy for a healer as well. Again, if you're doing dungeons, you'll want your Ultra Vibration combo. But with only 2 utility slots, as a healer in raids, you might end up dropping things like Moon Flute. You might not be, you know, doing your Moon Flute combos. You might have one healer who can do Moon Flute openers, and they'll keep that. Healers might even drop Sting. For a lot of these raids, you have to wait for mechanics to resolve before you can actually start stinging, otherwise you can wipe the raid. So a lot of the time you end up pretty much killing the boss just as is without stinging, so this becomes less useful. You might even, you know, consider dropping Rose of Destruction. Healers won't get as much mileage out of this. Again, varies fight to fight. However, picking up Stotrim and Angel Snack, definitely mandatory. These are hugely helpful and really filled a gap in the healer role for Blue Mage. Now let's talk about Tank, and I think Tank really got some nice tools with 5.45. So if you're raiding, you can take Dragon Force, and this is basically just think of Rampart, but even stronger. When you're under Tank Mimicry, this is a 40% damage reduction. Huge. Gate is also nice. So this is 20% damage reduction, and if you take 30% of your maximum HP as damage, you get to do a sort of counterattack, and for a tank, that is 1000 potency. This is a huge attack, so it's really cool as a tank to take damage and then reflect it back in a way. This functions similarly to the Darkest Night, or is it Blackest Night? The Blackest Night as Blue Mage. So sorry, Blackest Night on Dark Night, and this is basically our version. So it's just like the Bluest Night, and it's really cool. The only thing is you can't move while you're channeling it, but you can cancel it whenever you want, especially once you get that damage reflect. If you're a tank, it might even be worth taking this Basic Instinct. It's the case a lot of the time in raids where, you know, the tank is the last one standing. With this Basic Instinct, they can then, you know, super buff themselves and get off a final sting that's worth basically 2 stings. Tanks are, as usual, kind of strapped for spells because you might want your tank taking Bad Breath. Maybe you want to look for threat. They definitely need Mighty Guard. Maybe Sticky Tongue, maybe Blood Drain. You definitely need Diamondback. So you can see as we're starting to add these utility spells, we might even consider doing things like dropping Dragon Force. Maybe we don't really need the 40%. It's kind of an awkward area because Diamondback is your huge tank buster mitigation still, and then you have like the small tank busters, which Gate is good enough for, and it gives you the extra damage. You then have these last 2 spots, which, you know, maybe you're grabbing White Wind for raid healing or for threat. It's definitely pretty tight, again, for tanks. Tanks and healers don't really have the same freedom that DPS do for these spells. But I think in general, this will be your pretty good starting spot as a tank. Again, you might drop this Moon Flute. It's very rare that you'll actually be using Moon Flute. You could use it as a finisher, especially with Basic Instinct. But in that case, I would maybe even just grab Whistle instead, because that's a bigger buff to your Sting. So this is pretty much going to be our tank setup. You might consider grabbing Hammer. You might consider... how did I forget this? Devour. You definitely need Devour. I knew I was missing one spell, because usually we only have 1 slot here. So you definitely need Devour. Remember, in 5.4, we got the buff that makes this a permanent buff on tanks, so you get extra health. So you can see here, we really only have the 1 spot. And in my opinion, that's usually going to be something like Hammer. Or you can drop that whistle and you can grab Tingle Triple Trident just for a nice little combo if you don't need those spots. So that's going to be basically our spells for each of the roles. Again, this is all changing very rapidly. If you join the Blue Academy Discord server, you'll see that A, we've grown a ton in the last week, which is not really that surprising, and B, the channels like Theory Crafting are getting a lot of use while people are trying to figure out, are these spells worth taking? There's even things that would be complete heresy, like suggesting we drop Bristle's Song of Torment, but it doesn't really seem that unreasonable when you look at the numbers that people are posting. So if you want to keep up to date with these things as they're changing, definitely join us and see what people are saying. But for right now, the spells that I just recommended should be pretty good starting points for just about everyone. The other big thing that people are asking about is best in slot gear. This is, again, something that is an ongoing debate. It's pretty much, if you want an abridged version, use whatever max level gear and you'll be fine for just about all content. People are trying to figure out what is truly optimal, and it's looking like spell speed determination might be because of the fat dot from Nightbloom. So we're looking again at Eureka gear and some non-Eureka gear, crit and direct hit type stuff, seeing how they all stack up. So this is an ongoing debate. We don't have a definite answer for that, but you know that once we do, I will update you all. Same goes for the spellbooks. So, ranting done. Definitely go and pick up all your spells. We got a lot of cool new fun tools in this patch. Blue Mage has been an absolute blast to play this last week, and I see a lot of new Blue Mages having a ton of fun with it too. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them, in the video comments here below, or come join us on Discord and come join the chat. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.